are a strategic consulting and results-based training firm. Their mission is to drive the results that are really the most important for organizations now and for the long term in order to thrive in the marketplaces they operate in. A little bit more background on Jack. He has a relentless passion for higher education. He's highly involved in his alma mater, Kutztown University, and Rider University. We have got a delightful opportunity to be able to partner with both he and Joe today. I hope you find their presentation as electrifying and interesting as both of these gentlemen present and engage you this evening. And I guarantee you, you will be highly engaged during this session. So Jack and Joe.
Thank you. I love the word electrifying. First of all, it can't beat a word like that. So what a good standard to set up. So first, thank you all so much for being here. And a couple things right up front. This is not going to be a standard boring webinar. One, you see me standing up. This is going to be very interactive, but yet very relevant, very pragmatic. Two, we are recording this, so we will make sure to get, and I'll prompt that at the very end, kind of the follow-up out to you, including this slide deck. And at the same time, you will be getting a couple other follow-ups from us as well to help drive this into action, which is something we're known for, whether we've spoken at SHRM Annual as a mega session or pre-con sessions, a lot of the state conferences or breakouts. We always make sure there's a 2 to 3 sets of follow-ups coming out so that this is usable and this is something that is applicable. That being said, a couple of housekeeping items. So your chat box is going to be your main asset besides your mouth and your brain today. So when it comes to questions, when we start to prompt some questions or comments or insights, which we will prompt you for, please put them there. Joe, who's our COO, will kind of moderate that. So that way, as we look to this to be interactive and pragmatic, we also want to have that time for Q&A as well. So your chat box will be the #1 thing. Second, please make sure your video is on. We will want this to be, again, very interactive with you. And also, one thing we will be doing is we will be using breakout rooms. Want to make sure, again, as we would do if you were sitting at a table and eating right now, and I'd be standing up in front of you, we do want to make sure that there is time, not just for Q&A, and you sit here and listen to this webinar, but beyond the engagement, having time in some small groups to discuss the insight and the value for you. So with that being said, let's get started. So just by a show of hands, and when I do mean show of hands, I physically do mean you putting your hands actually up. So again, we're going to treat this as if I'm right in front of you all. How many by show of hands have actually been on a cruise before or know people that have been on a cruise before? Okay. I recognize this isn't the kind of cruise that you probably think I'm talking about, Royal Caribbean, Disney, Norwegian, whatever it might be. The very first cruise I ever went on was at least a good 18, 19 years ago. My wife and I at the time had just gotten married. We're about 1 or 2 years in. Went on a cruise in Royal Caribbean, and you might be familiar on a cruise that you typically have this kind of common dinner hour that if you don't have like a family of like 8 people, you're mixed in with other families. So we got the benefit of meeting a lot of cool people, and you have dinner time with them. So one couple in particular, their names were Harry and Selma. They used to own one of these kind of cruises you see on my screen right now. One of these kind of dinner on the sea, gambling type cruises, and very high end. In college, they call it booze cruise. We try to dress it up as an adult, dinner on the sea, right? Make it sound so, you're still drinking and having a good time, right? You all know that, show of hands. If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. That's okay. You can lie here, totally fine. So Harry was telling me that they've become professional cruisers. They sold this business at that time about 3 years before. And he shared with us at the table, probably the third night that we were having dinner. He said that it's one of those, not this kind of boat, but one of those old-fashioned, coal-fired, big steam pipes up top, paddle in the back, ships. Really cool, really traditional. He said after 25 years, after he finally decided to sell the business, of course is when all the problems happened. So 3 different times in a 6-month term by which he was ready to sell the boat, was going to do a couple more cruises, do some maintenance, and then jettison the business, no pun intended. 3 times in 6 months before he's supposed to turn the business over, the entire Boilermaker completely failed. And if you don't know what a Boilermaker looks like, it's kind of like this, right? All these different kinds of obviously gadgets and monitors and meters and everything, pipes and everything else. And he's saying the whole thing just collapsed. So he brings in his top engineering crew the first time. They look at it, they check it, a week's worth of work, take the boat offline, $30,000, $40,000 in direct and indirect costs. They say, we got it, Harry, you're fixed. He reschedules his cruises. What do you think happened 2 weeks later? Same exact thing. Broke down. I had to take the boat offline again. Calls the backup engineering company. What's going on? What happened? Don't worry, we found the real problem. You're good. And then, of course, a week before everything was going to be sold and done, broke again. He's panicking. Calls the buyer and says, can I please have like a 30-day extension? Just need to work through some kind of upkeep, maintenance. Everything will be good. You'll get a letter that secures it. He's worried. He's like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to sell this? How am I going to do this? What is the problem? So the third person he calls was not from a major company, no major brand on the sleeves, no fancy equipment. It was just this old school kind of handyman who works on the docks. Guy comes in and he's thinking to himself, all right, these big companies take a week. This guy's going to at least take 2 to 3 weeks, and at least it gives me a month to know. The guy comes in and he says, all right, Harry, before we go into the boiler room, I've got some questions. And Harry's like, I just need you to go to the boiler room and fix it. I don't want to talk to you. Go fix it. So the guy's saying, look, I promise you this will be worth your time. So about 5 minutes goes by and he's asking him questions about his usage, his efficiency, his maintenance, the type of things he's doing on the boat, what he's doing before the boat kind of goes off the dock, when it comes back on dock. Everything you can imagine from A to Z, he's asking Harry. So, all right, Harry, let's go to the boiler room. Say, Harry, hang out for a little bit. And he's literally walking up and down these aisleways that you see here, checking everything, feeling everything, listening, writing little notes in this old little notepad. After about another 5 minutes, he's like, Harry, I know what your problem is. He's like, a problem or the problem? He's like, the problem. He's like, after 5 minutes, he's like, yes, I swear. He's like, okay, how many weeks will it take for you to fix it since you're by yourself? He's like, 30 seconds. He's like, no way. He's like, I've had the best companies that you know exist here that do this all the time. They were here a week, 3 people, there's no way. It's like, listen, I'm gonna do what I need to do. And if it works, I promise you I will take care of you. He's like, all right. So he goes in his bag. He doesn't pull out some big fancy tool. It's this little tiny tap hammer. He goes all the way to the back of the boiler room. And he says, Harry, you see this little red valve on the bottom where everything's coming down to, and then your pipe shoots up, and that's where all your steam is starting to kind of push and move the boat? He's like, oh, yeah, I've seen that before. He's like, watch. Takes out a tiny tap hammer, taps it a couple times, and all of a sudden, works. No joke. He says the guy zippers up his bag, and he says, before I leave, I know you're worried. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to put me on the contract when you sell this boat in a month, because it's still going to be working. You are going to make sure that I'm on there for all liability. After 6 months, clean for the buyer, everything is good, and I'm there in case there's a problem. I'm liable. You're going to pay my bill. Harry's like, okay. And he's kind of suspect. He's like, I have no other choice. Well, guess what? 6 months goes by. Everything's fine. Everything's good. He sold his business. He has his retirement. They're now professional cruisers. So he's like, oh, I got to get the Boilermakers guy's invoice. So remember, 15 minutes worth of work. Look at this. $10,000. He's like, what? He's like, I was going to give the guy a couple $100. I was going to give him a bonus. This is outrageous. I want to see an itemized bill. So he calls the guy up. He's like, no problem, Harry. I apologize. For tapping the red valve, all it cost was a whopping $50. For knowing where to tap, $9,950. Harry paid the bill. So the lesson here, as it relates to your current reality, your bigger future as an organization, within and beyond COVID, is what is your red valve that you must tap into right now when it comes to your culture, when it comes to your strategy, when it comes to your capability, and overall, how we ensure our people, certainly through all that, feel safe, certainly secure, certainly feeling that they are still viable, and more importantly, that there's a runway for them to go on, right? So when you think about where your organization is today, what is the red valve that you need to be tapping right now in support? So what I want you to, wherever you're taking notes, whatever you're thinking, what is the red valve you need to tap into? What I mean by that is there's a lot of things we can do. All these engineers are doing a lot of different work on Harry's boat. There's a lot of things we're doing, right? There's a lot of things we're working on and fixing. There's a lot of things that we are tinkering with. But when you boil it, no pun intended, boil it all down, what is the red valve we need to tap into or tap into more fully that we're not currently doing right now. So I'm going to kind of pass this off, and we're going to have a little fun with this, because if I have all of your windows up, I can't see the slides just to make sure everything is kind of running good. So here's what we're going to do. Sharon, I'm going to call on you. Whether it's for you, your own team, or your organization, you can pick whatever you want, because some of you could be independent, wherever you might be. So for you, your team, or your organization, what is one red valve you need to be tapping into right now to drive greater value or progression currently?
Our organization needs to deliver impeccable service through online sales. I work at David's Bridal, and we're clearly still seeing people get married through COVID, not necessarily in the way they want, but every bride that I've ever known has said, this is about me and my day and my dress, and I need everything to go exactly to plan. So our organization really had to pivot and make sure we had all available support and resourcing and access to materials online, so brides felt like, hey, store's shut down, I can still get to what I need.
Awesome. You get to call on somebody that you and the group you feel would like to hear from. So who would you like to hear from, just to answer this question again? Either for you, for your benefit, your team, or your organization, what's the red valve we need to tap into? No right or wrong answer. Sharon, who would you like to hear from?
How about Chris Broad?
So Chris, you can hit your space bar and that should automatically unmute you. Chris, can you hear us?
Or next up, Teresa.
I like it, we got backup.
Oh, wait, Chris is coming. Hang on.
Okay.
Chris, you're still muted if you're talking.
Yep, you just want to hit your space bar, Chris, or go to the bottom left. You can just unmute on the bottom left corner if you drag your cursor right to the bottom of the screen.
Excellent. Good.
Yay.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing us to call on you without your knowing it.
Nice.
Told you this would be interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, for you, team, or organization, whatever's kind of beneficial to you, what is a red valve that you feel needs to be tapped into for either category, whatever you choose?
I guess just the sense of team and kind of keeping everybody together and making sure everybody feels part of what's going on.
That's awesome. And what do you mean by that, Chris? What's the most critical thing that you feel that team or your organization needs to know to be a part of that? What's one aspect that has to get done to further bring that out?
Communication. I think making sure everybody feels as if they're getting current information and that everybody's having everything shared in the same way and getting all the information at the same time.
Got that. Got that. If we all can, for both Chris and Sharon, let's give them some appreciation, please. I want to see you clapping. I want to hear you.
Yeah, right. Yay.
Or, oh, Denise getting real fancy, actually showing the clapping symbol, which is the new emoticon. We're showing off now our Zoom badges or credentials, which, by the way, there is none. No, we can't get those out. That's not such a thing. But it probably will be in about 5 minutes. So what do we talk about when we talk about tapping into the red valve? Well, no joke, I kind of turned that story into something that really helped build the core of the company in terms of what we do, which is first, true clarity. So you'll see the T highlighted as in tap in terms of what we do. So do me a favor, everybody put your arms up like this. Say wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I know we're too cool for school. You've never been interacted with this way. You're used to just being listening and talked to. Yes, we respect you as human beings. Say true clarity. Right? That's about understanding and defining what's really most important. Second, put your fingers together like this. Say aligned accountability.
Aligned accountability.
That's about driving the buy-in and the follow-through to what we're truly clear about in a way so that we can ensure, put your hand out like this and tap it like this and say purposeful execution.
Purposeful execution.
Got it. So we need to have what? True what?
Clarity.
Clarity.
Everybody, I want to hear you.
Clarity.
Clarity. Aligned what?
Accountability.
Purposeful
Execution.
Got it. That is what we need to tap into. True clarity to what's really most important now and for the long term, especially in today's time. How do we drive aligned accountability? So exactly to Chris's point, we're not just communicating with them, but we're creating value and intelligence back and forth so that we know what we need to do, why we need to do it, and how we need to be accountable, not just to get the job done, create value for the client, customers, or drive growth, but how we do so to preserve and support ourselves. So when we do execute, it's purposeful. Focus on today in a way to set you up with a mindset, a framework, and an approach that's going to be successful. So with that being said, let's look at some realities that just came out from Gallup. Literally, we're talking just a few weeks ago. So first, only 30, and we wire this into kind of the TAP model, which connects perfectly. This is all from Gallup. Only 39% of US employees strongly agree that their employer, Chris, this goes right to your point, has communicated a clear plan of action in response to COVID-19. Aligned accountability. Less than half of employees strongly agree that their immediate supervisor keeps them informed about what's going on in the organization as it relates to the impact of COVID-19, right? How does all of this relate to me, us, projects, priorities? If I'm being furloughed right now and I'm still actively at least engaged in getting value for myself, right? How does that all connect and work, especially now? And in terms of purposeful execution, when asked to reconsider the recent impact of COVID-19, less than half of employees strongly agree that their organization cares about their overall well-being. Think about where this may relate to your organization. Maybe everything's going well, but maybe it's certain teams. Maybe it's not certain teams, but certain individuals. And again, how do we know if people, to Chris's point, we may be communicating a lot, doing a lot, providing a lot. Is it being received in a way that people truly are clear to align and be accountable so when they execute, it's purposeful, which means taking ownership of what's going on, not just being engaged in doing a good job. So let's focus. First again is what? True what? Let me hear you. I'll take that you're talking, you forgot to unmute. That's fine. You were loud in your own voice. Okay? Appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna have a little fun. Okay, it's okay to have fun here. Yes.
Yeah.
We don't do boring. We don't do boring here. Harvard Business Review came out with a very simple but powerful study. Why do 80% of organizational strategies fail? So think about this, right? There's a litany of reasons as to why this happens, and we can probably go all this hour and a half to figure that out. The number one reason is a lack of clarity. So let's have a little bit of fun with this to show the power of why clarity, communication, but clarity is so key when it comes to making sure it's true to what's really most important. So we're gonna have a little fun. So we're gonna play a game called the white game. What is the color inside the lettering that you see here that's outlining the word white? What's the color?
White.
White. What's the color around the screen, inside of the screen around the word white?
White.
White. What is the color of most men's undershirts?
White.
White.
Most notebook paper?
White.
What do cows drink?
No.
No.
No, I think if you really rethink your answer, I know we've been staying at home a long time. We've probably not seen a cow in a very long time. Last I checked, we do not see cows. Now we're talking cows, not calves, going up to other cows. And I think you get the idea, right? So cows drink what?
Water.
You're not even sure now. What made us say milk? I conditioned you to say white. Drink white milk. How quick was it for me to change your perception on what you thought you were clear about, but you were not, right? So we're gonna take this one step further. We're gonna play a very simple game called First Thing. Sharon, I'm gonna ask you for some help on this because we're gonna make this quick, again, but engaging. Think of somebody you wanna call on in just a moment. When I say to all of us, COVID-19, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Sharon?
Germs.
COVID-19, first thing that comes to your mind, and then we're going to get a few people real quick on this one.
Okay. Germs. Maria.
Okay?
People sick, getting sick.
Okay. Sharon, you can call in somebody else for us just to moderate this for a moment.
Bill Stiver.
Who's this?
Jill Wund.
Illness.
Thank you.
Diana?
One more. One more.
Policies.
Did you say policies, Diana?
Yes.
Okay. So
Diana's got things tied down.
that's awesome. That's definitely a good thing. Think about what we've just done. And if we kept going and I said COVID-19, different perceptions. Imagine if this was your whole team, organization. What would their perceptions be of it right now? If we said company strategy and we were in your organization, what would the first thing people say right now? If we said priority, think about what I'm doing here right now. What is in the hearts, the minds, and in the focus of your people beyond what we say, beyond what we do, is it truly clear? Because when we're not clear, we're not aligned. If we're not aligned, we're not accountable to the level of what we need to be accountable for. If we're not accountable, because we're not aligned, we're not truly clear, we're going to execute and get stuff done, but we're going to do so in a way that beyond just doing well for the day, the week, are we again stabilizing and strengthening our people? Are we really driving the kind of transformation we need, whether it's policies and procedures, as Diana said, it's repositioning the organization, and or just our own team in a way that we can provide value, provide support in a way that's different. Can't do that if we're not truly clear. So where does this all start? Whether we're talking day to day with your people in scrums and huddles, whether it's weekly meetings, whether it's key projects, whether it's really being an extension or resource if we are an essential business right now, whether that be in healthcare, whether that be in regards to even banking. Keep going down the list, right? We all have different demands that are put upon us. Some of us may be shut down right now. Where does it all start? It does not start by looking for the answers that we need. What do we need to do? Where do we need to go? It's about discovering the right questions to ask. So what we're about to go through is the framework that's really the anchor of this session today in how do we drive true clarity, whether it's strategic across your organization or situationally within a couple of different departments or just between you and one of your key people. So the first and only question that really helps shape all of this is what is really most important now and for the long term. I'll complete this in a minute. This is one of the most powerful questions we need to be arming ourselves with. Because think of the word really. Really, if I say to you, what really happened? I'm looking for absolute truth. I'm not looking for every detail, but at the core, what really drives this, right? So for you, on a daily basis with your team, weekly basis with your team, monthly, quarterly, certainly we're not thinking really beyond that right now. Monthly is the new 1 year, right? So how we really frame our reality in a way that isn't about trying to fix everything, but take ownership of how we again kind of contextually kind of understand everything is about what is really most important now and for the long term in 4 simple areas. One is your marketplace. This is where you play, where you compete, whether you think of yourself from an industry perspective, if we're in a bank or credit union, community perspective, regional perspective, or for global, North America, EMEA, APAC, and with inside of that, what we actually do. What is really most important now and for the long term? One, in our marketplace. And with that, 2 is what does that then mean going number 2 to our customers? Or if there's credit unions here, which we do a lot of work with, members. Second, our organization. And then lastly, our people. These are the 4 cornerstones that any project, initiative, goal, problem, breakdown, breakthrough, keep going down the list. Where we play, who we serve, who we are, and who's going to live and drive all of this, right? Now and for the long term, that could be today and next month, today and next week, right? What is it that we need to understand in terms of what's really most important? This is purely a setup because this is such a critical process to what we're about to do. But I'm going to give you an example which you will get so that even for your team, you could be, again, of course, HR. If you're from any other business line or function or your own teams and functions, it's really what is the critical question we have to ask and answer in each of these buckets so that we're shaping how we need to understand and own what's kind of happening outwardly in the world so we understand kind of what we're trying to do to lead through it, not react to it. So to give you a simple example before we build forward. So it comes to the critical question in each of these buckets to ask and answer. Let me show you what I mean. So Bosch is one of our clients out in Sunnyvale, California, which is Silicon Valley. And for them, in terms of becoming a one-site operation, they have 12 different business units, 7 different corporate research departments. Some report to Germany. Some really are just independent of being startups within Silicon Valley. A lot of different reporting lines and responsibilities. This, beyond everything else we did with them, really helped shape how do we go about not just our future, but even now what they're doing to help respond to, obviously, the pandemic we're on. So just giving you an example. So our marketplace, again, key question for the whole site. You can frame this down to just you being an HR function, certainly org-wide. How can we best engage in the Silicon Valley ecosystem to unlock the greater purpose and value as a site in how we provide impactful innovations for life? Customers, how do we create sustainable solutions that empower our customers and stakeholders to achieve a level of return that they will only get here first? Our site, how do we build on each other's strengths to identify the next big thing years before everyone else and drive it through local and global collaborations? Lastly, people, how do we uncover, activate, and sustain the passions that drive each of us in our work and that lead to contributions that make a significant impact and helps our people realize their full potential? They use this to shape the long-term strategy. They use this to shape the quarterly, the monthly, weekly, daily, in a way that isn't just site-wide, but each function. So I set this stage for you so that what we're about to go through has not only meaning for you, but just simply starting to get you on one of the most critical things you can do. Besides goals, which change, besides realities of furloughing, letting people go, or stabilizing, and when we do, maybe we're gonna kind of bounce around. What provides true clarity so that in a moment, when challenges and breakdowns do come, when opportunities to drive breakthroughs or greater opportunities come, how do we filter it? This is one of the most simplest things that you can do, that beyond the process to build it and anchor it, just what's the critical question we must ask and answer in terms of understanding what's really most important, the marketplace we play in, the customers that we serve, who we are as an organization, and what that means for our people. You could just make this about your department. So as I share this with you and get you thinking, let's really start to talk about now, how do we make sure to drive true clarity? We understand that when breakdowns occur, which I'm sure, show of hands, how many of you have had emotional, mental, or just otherwise breakdowns in terms of dealing with for yourself and your own team, how to handle this from beginning of March to now? Right? How many of you had some kind of, it's normal. Not like you're having a breakdown where you have to go see like a psychiatrist breakdown. But we're talking about a breakdown can also just be, you had a moment, you had a day. And frankly, we know this with a lot of our clients. Sometimes needing help and support right now is even getting more normalized, more encouraged, more collaboratively discussed. But this is about dealing with the breakdowns that could be in our procedures, in our overall organization, and how we drive breakthroughs. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about right now, either marketplace, if you're talking about growth and stabilizing your business outside of your kind of day-to-day, if it's the customers that you serve, which Sharon just talked about before, if it's just your organization or your people, pick one of those 4 things that for you right now is really critical to work on for the benefit of your organization. I want you to pick one. And as you pick one in your mind, you can write this down. Over the next 30 days, what do you want to do to drive true clarity where we're really clear, we're really connected, and we really understand where our focus needs to be so that beyond the 30 days, we also know how to really think beyond that. So one of those 4 areas, and I want you to pick a priority that you really want to be able to better accomplish in either one of those 4. So pick that right now. So it's marketplace, like I said, it could be growth and position. For customers, it's about value creation and being a partner to them. We heard the gentleman from Paycor. What did he do in his presentation? It's all about value. It's all about support, all about being a real resource, right? That's all about customers. Wasn't trying to sell anything, it's about value. Organizationally, how we focus, restructuring. We may be furloughing and letting people go. We may be, again, just really changing around all that. Or if it's people and just being where they need us to be for them, pick that. But as you pick that, think to yourself, write down, type down, wherever you're thinking about this and taking notes, what is really most important for me to accomplish in that area over the next 30 days? And with that, we're going to now go through how do we kind of walk through and kind of go through these breakdowns in our own minds where people, as you very well know, if you read the headlines that we've had over the past couple months, right? And you look at the stock market, by a show of hands, is the stock market aligned to what's going on in reality? If you say no way, shake your head no. No, right? There are days where it's like, oh, a cure is coming. There's days when, oh, wait a second, we're having 40% uptick in people getting infected, right? There's so much news that we don't even know how to own the narrative. Those are the breakdowns. So how do we manage the breakdowns? How do we drive the breakthroughs? Let's take a look at this process. This happens in a moment. This happens, of course, over a day. It can happen over a week. It can be with one person, it can be between 50 people, it can be between 500 people. This is where culture, strategy, overall what we're trying to do breaks down. So think of your core focus, whatever that is for you. And actually, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask for a volunteer. You're going to get some free coaching. We're going to have a little fun with this to see how this actually works. So Sharon, I'm going to call on you again. Pick somebody for me. And again, when you're chosen, you're just getting some coaching right now, but it's going to benefit seeing this kind of real-time, real throw. So Sharon, go. Who can we talk to today?
Why don't we try Dawn? Dawn, are you willing?
All free value, and you're going to benefit your community. No pressure.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Dawn,
Sorry.
how are you?
I apologize.
I like your hutch there. You got some good stuff there in that cabinet I see behind you.
No, thanks.
Don, for you, which of those 4 cornerstones did you select as a priority for the next 30 days?
I think it's the people.
Awesome. What is really most important for you to accomplish in the next 30 days with them?
Just the appropriate communications to get out to the teams, the focus, and where the company's going.
Okay. When we talk about communications to the team and where the company's going, give us one example of what that means to you that when we hear it, we're like, oh, got it. That's really important.
Well, just I guess to keep morale going, I mean, the industry that I was in was working in entertainment. And as we know, that's not happening right now. And just trying to keep influence and morale up and knowing that there's going to be a future in that and hopeful, so.
Excellent. So let's take Don's focus. And then as we go through this with him, I want you to picture your focus in here. This is real-time learning where while we're listening, we're immersing, put your reality into your priority and watch what happens. As I just proved to you with the white game, proved to you with that first thing when I said COVID-19, how quickly things can get off track. So Don, when it comes to communication, where things are going, how does that connect to your people? The first thing that happens when it comes to things breaking down, where we have fear, we have panic, we've got things really shifting all over, is very simply a lack of understanding. Right now, Don, what is one of the most critical things that your people in your organization really don't understand that's really critical right now? What don't they understand overall, if you can think of an example?
Just the uncertainty, I think, when the next step's going to be to get back to it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so if I hear you right, you're saying what they don't understand is what is our next step? What's the path? How do we get some semblance of kind of knowing what it's going to take for us to get back? Am I hearing you right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when people don't understand that, number 2, we don't think about your own self. When we don't understand something, you're trying to figure out, how many of you have ever, just to pause Don for a second, how many of you have ever gotten a set of instructions, furniture, kids' toys, and those instructions were god awful? You couldn't understand it. It was like A to D goes to E to F, and you can't even see the picture of what you're putting together. You're all smiling and laughing because you know it's true, right? You don't understand. After 5 minutes of trying to figure out, you get a lot of what? Number 2 is uncertainty. Who would agree with me?
Yeah.
Right? So Don, back to the pragmatic side, because they don't understand the steps in the path, what uncertainty are all, some, or overall building kind of emotions going on? What do they have uncertainty about? Based on, we don't understand the path, now they're feeling uncertain. What are they feeling uncertain about? Right.
I think it's security, really,
How so? Security about what specifically?
Personal security at work and making sure that there's a future and, that we're going in the right direction. You know what I mean? So.
Okay. Would you say right now that it's really high, middle, or low, the level of uncertainty right now in your organization?
Mid to high, yeah.
Okay. Is it growing, or is it like kind of like COVID-19? Is it kind of like, collapsing in terms of going downward?
I'd say it's growing based on
Okay.
the length of time that we're at, you know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. When we start to get uncertainty, it leads to perceptions. I'll go back to the working on the kids' toy and or furniture. You start to get frustrated. What perceptions do we have sometimes? I can't put this together. This isn't going to work. How am I going to do this? What's going to happen? Right? How many of us have done that? You've just gotten to the point where in your head, you're like, okay, this is a waste of time. Can I return this? Your head gets a lot of perceptions. So think, Don, now back to you. What are some of the perceptions that you feel people are having right now because of this uncertainty? Because we don't understand the path. What perceptions are going on right now that you know or have heard or can occur?
Well, I guess the perception would be mostly that we're in a position of like hold, but how long can we hold? You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. And what happens when we have those perceptions? It can drive a downward shift in behavior, our motivation, our morale, that willingness and drive to work, the ability to kind of really be fully engaged, dealing with more Zoom meetings, dealing with kids that we're trying to teach at home. Have you seen a shift on in some of the behavior of people? Not in necessarily a negative way, but it's hard for some people or groups to really stay driven and committed because they're either so overwhelmed or just because right now there's just so much going on, they just don't know how to focus.
Yeah.
That happened as of yet.
Yes, the behavior is definitely that way.
What's an example, if you don't mind sharing? You don't have to elicit a specific function or group in your company, but what's an example of where you've seen that occur right now?
It's hard to put my finger on one thing, but I just say that, just staying connected and being able to be connected in that realm,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And over time, would you agree that can erode results if we don't take care of it sooner?
Yes.
Fair? Right. So first, let's give Don some appreciation, please.
Thank you.
This can happen in a moment. How many of you have gone, just even with your significant other, children, you say something to them, their little minds, and by the way, our little minds too don't do this. I don't understand what she's saying. You say that. You don't then say, I feel really uncertain about this. I'm about to form some perceptions that I don't really believe it, right? Kids and adults just jump right off the handle, right? How many of you agree with that? Say aye.
Aye.
Right? We react. We kind of like just divert our attention because we think someone or right? We all know this in our own personal relationships. Magnify that times the number of your people. Magnify that times what's going on in the macro world. This is what is often never looked at, is again, true clarity by first understanding what's really most important. So those 4 cornerstones kick in. And now when breakdowns occur, how are we defining and framing what's changing in a reality that we can give people comfort in and certainty in, right? So this is what happens there. And we're going to show you the process in a moment, and then we're going to get you into some breakout rooms. So breakthrough, okay? So Sharon, I want you to call in somebody else for me, just to show the opposite effect, and how we're going to put these in motion is what we're going to set you up into some breakout rooms in a moment to start to think about how you can do this in your own company. So pick somebody else first, Sharon. Who's going to be coming down the aisle? I feel like Price is right now.
How about Tamara?
Oh, and I saw her right above you a moment ago, so her picture is right above. Center square, top square.
Okay.
Tamara, what for you, give me one of those 4 cornerstones, marketplace, customer, org, or people, that's really most important for you in the next 30 days. Not that all aren't, but maybe one that is right now.
We are extremely customer focused right now.
Okay, for your part in helping the company support customer centricity and value, what's really most important in the next 30 days you want to help support or lead to accomplish?
Well, keeping people engaged and productive, and we have a large part of the workforce on 2 major projects we are on are new to the organization. So not only are they new, not have a lot of the institutional knowledge that they should at this point yet, we're relying heavily on them and trying to help and support them through in the virtual environment in continuing with the Google Grant Program and the Small Business Financing Forum that are coming up in the next couple weeks. That's huge. It's, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Got that. So for you, it's really about enablement, support, and really,
Activity.
yeah, right? And how do we continue to provide what they need in order to have that level of focus and real customer centricity so that we can really drive that? Is that fair? Am I reading that right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's look at the opposite. Where do you / your organization have true clarity now in terms of what you really feel we're really clear and just really focused on what we need to do with this? What is the most critical area that you're really clear about right now when it comes to that and what to do about that?
So from my specific end or organizational?
Yeah, let's pick your specific end.
So from my specific end is the digital literacy. So being supportive in utilizing the multiple platforms and upspeeding and providing the resources. I have a good backlog of resources that I've been really pushing out to folks and helping them upspeed either through video, some of them are even YouTube programs, and helping them through the onboarding for the digital literacy, you know, Salesforce, and a lot of those programs that new entrants into the workforce or new entrants into this environment just are not used to utilizing.
Awesome. Why do you feel that is or will continue to build certainty and confidence for people?
Well, I think through them being more confident on the platform, it comes across to the investors and the loanees that they're engaging with.
Got it.
Much more confident. I mean, if they're struggling through how to get through a Zoom meeting, for example, with somebody from Google, it's not going to appear that we are a good business partner. So I think that the confidence that in the digital platforms really helps them come across with some of the knowledge base that they need in utilizing and setting these programs, especially with that. I mean, these are huge partners that, you know, somebody coming out of college has never had to interact with small partners. Now you're telling them to interact with like Goldman Sachs and Google's and the Department of Treasury.
Love it. What possibilities will this foster if this continues to build and progress upward in where we are truly clear, building real certainty? How will that drive continued progression when it comes to possibilities? What's one possibility that this can really help continue to drive forward?
Relationship management.
How so? What do you mean by that?
In terms of being able to foster the relationships virtually, by the time they actually get in person, there'll be a much more level of comfortability with those individuals.
Love that. And what are some of the core behaviors that need to be activated to continue to drive those possibilities forward on top of what you're doing right now?
In terms of for the individuals?
Correct. Yep.
The biggest one for me would be communication skills across different mediums.
What's one aspect of that that's really critical to hone in on when it comes to that?
The one I had earlier conversation with somebody was about was being able to know when to fully listen and have that ability to, it's a little bit harder in a virtual environment to know when to speak and when to not speak. You know, it's easier in person. You have those those nonverbal cues a little bit better than in a virtual platform where sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, and just knowing how to navigate and having some really good sense of monitoring those smaller cues.
So if we have true clarity, what's really most important for our customers, how that connects to obviously me, right? And we do it in a way that is progressive, we can build confidence in people because they see the possibilities. They see the behaviors they need to work on that connect to that. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. And that really helps drive real results that not only that are gained by the bottom line and top line, but they see it, which funnels back into greater true clarity about myself and the organization, further strengthens my certainty and confidence, creates more possibility, right? This is a cycle. Would you agree with that, right? It creates positive momentum, real momentum, let's say.
Yeah, and efficiency.
Right. So these two cycles, we just, first of all, Tamara, give her some appreciation, please. These two cycles, and you know this in your own life and business and teams, when we go in that downward cycle, right, it just continues to feel like we can't pull out of it from a team to team, region to region, person to person perspective. But when we're really clear and we really are setting things up, right, it can create the positive momentum as well. So I'm going to share with you kind of the blueprint, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-team, team-to-team, org-wide, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, doesn't matter. What are the key questions we need to do to give people permission to get out of those breakdowns and to drive breakthroughs? So I'm going to show this to you. We're going to leave this up, and then we're going to get you into a Zoom room to really kind of talk about how you can start to leverage this. So again, you can ask this daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, doesn't matter. What don't my people? You can ask them, what don't you? Right? So this is for you to think about as a tool. You can turn this into an interactive conversation, very universal. What don't my people truly understand within our marketplace, customers, organization, and people? You can just pick one of them, right? I'm just giving you the overall blueprint now and for the long term. What don't they understand? Based on that lack of understanding, what emotions do my people feel right now? Or I know they will feel if not addressed, but what uncertainty has or will that cause at work and at home? What perceptions do they now have or will have based on this uncertainty about our marketplace, customers, org, and or people? What impact has that had or will that have? What values, behaviors, and actions have been or will be affected based on those perceptions? It could be org-wide, each leadership level, within our functions. Again, you're going to be able to customize this for yourself. I'm just giving you the broad blueprint. Lastly, what results have been or will be affected based on the behaviors that have shifted, and what will be affected if we don't act? We leverage this across all the big culture work that we do. Scrums, huddles, meetings. How many of you, by a show of hands, if you on a weekly basis, right, for your team, or bi-weekly, right, we're able to ask these questions? What don't you truly understand? What impact is that having right now in terms of your kind of uncertainty? What perceptions do you have? If we did this consistently, how many of you feel, by a show of hands, and say I, people would feel more validated? People would feel a greater sense of confidence, even though maybe there's nothing to be confident about yet. How many of you agree with that? Right? Because true clarity is not about having all the answers. Remember, it's about asking the right questions that people feel we're connected. We're on the same path. We're on the same page. Because that what allows us to then do is say, great, what is really most important for everyone to truly understand? Again, one or all in our marketplace, customers, organization, and people for the long term. And how does it shape our focus and approach for the next 30 days, next week, or tomorrow? So this is when we say, here's what's really most important for our department or organization. What do you feel is really most important for us and you to focus on over the next week or month? We've gone through clearing out the breakdowns, driving the breakthroughs. Great. Based on that true clarity, where can we have absolute confidence and certainty that we can build upon no matter what? What is the mindset we need to build for our organization, teams, and people? Again, we're leading our people to, again, have true clarity about really now building off where breakdowns occur. Again, we can use either of these in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, half day. You can use these however you want. Based on where we are confident, what are the known, unknown, and emerging problems we want to solve and opportunities that we want to seize both internally and externally? Again, think of these two verticals and how these drive kind of the engine of this true clarity and the power we give people to be a part of the process. Based on those possibilities, what are the core values, behaviors, and actions? And I say my team, because again, this is a tool for you. You could say behaviors and actions we must be focused on, and how does it relate to what is also needed at each leadership level and function? What are the results we want those behaviors to deliver that when it comes to the impact and growth we want to have internally and externally? You can do this one-on-one. You can do this one-on-team. This can be org-wide. This can be done pre a town hall meeting, where each leader of each team is going to do this with their people and really provide not only value as a team, but we're providing insights as an organization. How many of you see that value, just in terms of where this can apply in a lot of different ways? Yes?
Yeah.
Awesome. What we're going to do, and I'm going to turn this over to Joe right now, and this is the main focus of our session. We're going to focus on aligned accountability and purposeful execution as a back end of this, but this is the main thing. we're going to set you up in a moment into breakout rooms, Zoom rooms. And I want you, and I'll leave this slide up there. I want you to discuss in your group, where does this have value for you and what's going on in your organization right now? Upon applying some of this, bi-weekly, monthly, maybe just with 1 or 2 people on your team, doesn't matter. What value do you feel this can have for you to drive true clarity? Why will this be of value? And what is your first step going to be? How does this relate? What will you do to start to apply this? And again, what's your first action step? So just start to discuss kind of the application of this for you. Could just be for yourself. Could be, again, with another person or team. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. I want to get you into breakout rooms and get you to roll up some sleeves and get some real action going today.
All right. So we keep talking about how this is going to be different than your typical webinar. You're actually going to go talk to each other, just like if you would at a table. That's amazing. So there's a couple things that are going to happen right now. So we're going to leave this shot up right now, this slide. Take a picture of this, take a screenshot of it so you have it, because when we put you in breakout rooms, it's going to disappear for the moment. So take a picture, grab your phone, go ahead, do that now. You're going to pop into a breakout room with either 4 or 5 people in that room. Don't just all stand there or sit there and look at each other. Someone's going to have to take leadership to start that conversation first. So whomever's birthday is next and coming the soonest,
Nice.
you're in charge. That's going to be you. So we ask you to lead that conversation. At least just get it started. Just say the first few words and then point fingers at whoever's going to go next. We'll give you a few minutes to get this started. And then when we're ready to close out the breakout rooms, there you go, Don, take that picture. When we're ready to close out the breakout rooms, you will see a screen pop up that says we'll close the breakout rooms in 30 seconds automatically. You can finish your conversation after 60 seconds. You'll get back here automatically, or if you're done, you can come back here and we'll be waiting for you. All right, so we're going to open those rooms right now. They're all randomized. You're going to automatically pop into that room. So get ready, set, and here we go. All right, the rooms have been closing. We are starting to come back. Welcome back from your breakout room. Hopefully it wasn't complete silence the entire time. I know not everyone is able to be available and fully present the entire time. Just to let you know, if you are distracted and you are doing your laundry or you're not on video for whatever reason, you're also less accountable and you're probably gonna miss a couple things. But what we'd love to do is hear from you. What was the biggest insight that you've pulled from your conversation? So go ahead, open that chat box at the bottom of your screen. You'll see chat. Go ahead, write down what is the biggest insight that you took away. And we're going to call on a couple of people who have some really good insights there, and we'll debrief 1 or 2 of those as everyone continues to rejoin the meeting. Welcome back. So go ahead, open up your chat box and let us know what's the biggest insight. Type something, type anything. But type. And if you're on the phone, obviously you can't do that. So you can always just shout and I'll definitely hear you. All right. Got a couple things coming up. Sharon is saying communicating with people is key in all caps to understanding. Diana is saying everyone is dealing with the same issues with their employees and helping them through this. Maria, Group 7 discussed the uncertainties with the future. Thanks for letting us know what group you're in. Teresa, common themes around people and concerns, including uncertainty. So Jack, we got a couple examples. Where do you want to go with it?
Love that. So let's actually call on, or call up, if you will. Diana, you mentioned everyone is dealing with the same issues. Well, of course, I love when people add chat because then we lose the thing. And now you see me that I actually hit my own screen. So it's great. Everyone's dealing with the same issues with their employees and helping them through this. Diana, what did you mean by that, dealing with the same issues?
You know, even though it was a small group.
Oh, your group, got you.
Yeah, yeah.
Your company group.
Well, I mean, our breakout group. But, you know, even though, you know, we're from different areas, we're all dealing with the stress of trying to help the employees deal with the uncertainty, their anxiety, keeping them up to date with what we're learning, what we know from compliance, from policies, like I said earlier, from making sure you know you're doing the right thing, making sure they're informed, making sure they're comfortable, safe, secure, knowing that we're there for them. So I feel that everyone is going through the same type of feelings right now.
where for your organization is those efforts not hitting and creating the impact that you want? What do you think is missing right now, if anything, in terms of what we're doing and it actually being received and felt as, okay, I feel better, I feel stronger, I feel a sense of like, okay, strength and unity. Where is there maybe an area for improvement, if at all, for what you're doing in your company right now?
I feel like it might be the perception. So
Also,
knowing what we're doing and assuming that everyone's taking it the way we want them to take it or understanding it the way we need them to understand it. And then when you get those questions from the staff or the managers and knowing that, you already addressed that, you already put it out there. So what did we miss? What did we not communicate well enough that you're still asking a question that we have already addressed? So I guess that would be the main thing, like maybe being more elaborate. I don't know.
yeah. And being a part of a lot of global town halls in respect of a lot of the work that we're doing with clients right now, you'll see in the chat box, right? People get more comfortable in town halls or meetings sharing things because, again, they're on video, not used to it with 400 or 200 or 20 or 30 people, right? As you're talking about. But they may say things such as, when are we coming back? They may say things such as, and I had this in one of the town halls with one of our guys. What would cause you to fire any of us? In front of 500 people in the CEO, right? It's like, wow. That's not just a question. That question is rooted in what? Perceptions that they're going to get fired, which we found out.
Mm-hmm.
What uncertainty is causing that? Because no one is connected with me about what's going on with our function besides just the organization. And I'm sensing that our viability is going to really be in question because of everything being shut down. And because of that, I don't understand necessarily what the strategy is if we stay this way for 6 months or not, and it's really pressing upon us, right? This is happening in organizations. So and thank you so much, Diana, for sharing that. This path, like I said, isn't just about, which we typically do, what questions do you have? What is it you like to know? That's not easy sometimes for people. Sometimes it's like, what are your perceptions? Like Diana just said right now. What are you perceiving of the world? Be honest. And then we say, great, what uncertainty has caused you to really have these perceptions about the world? What are you uncertain about? Great. What don't you truly understand that if you did would make a big difference? Do we all get that? There's a lot of power in this process, not just step 1 through step 5, but just being where people are, which in many ways is in steps 3 and 4 in that breakdown path, right? We're going up and down with that. But then, very powerfully, hey, beyond the steps 1 through 5, what are some possibilities that you're excited about that we can work on as an organization to get stronger and ready? What do you think we could be working on right now that can get us stronger? Great. Where are you most certain and confident that that's going to make a huge difference? Excellent. What do you feel is kind of the clarity, though, that we absolutely have right now in terms of our focus, our identity, that helps build that confidence to create those possibilities so we can activate change and really lead through this? Does that make sense what I just did? Right? So first, give Diana and give all yourself some appreciation, please. Joe, you're going to get the call, and we'll get one more person before we get to the last 2 sections that build off our main focus today. Your turn.
So just a quick heads up, if you do have any background noise, I have been taking the privilege of muting you for 2 reasons. Number 1, because this is recorded, and anytime you make noise, the person making the noise shows up on the speaker view. So I'm not trying to push you down or push you away. Just want to give you a heads up as to why that's happening. So Maria is typing a bunch in here, Jack. So Maria is talking, Group 7 discussed uncertainties regarding the economic situation of customers, particularly in the medical field, affecting the organization. Also, employees not feeling they are able to provide added value in the field of medical communication. In the education field of uncertainty of the fall and the type of education, face-to-face, are we going to be virtual or online? So let's get Maria up here. Maria D. I'm not
Yes.
going to try to butcher your last name.
Dimas.
Dimas. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
Maria, just a couple, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for typing so much. That's an awesome example. expand upon that a little bit in terms of, you mentioned uncertainty about the economy, uncertainty in regards to just kind of when things are coming back, right? Expand upon that a little bit about what's going on, and then we'll kind of walk through some of this before we move on.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I would like to call my members in the team because they can give us a better ideas. The team members that talk about the medical field, that they support the health industry. Can you please tell us about the uncertainties that we discussed?
Yeah, that was me, Teresa. And I just was trying to explain that in supporting the healthcare industry, we're a nonprofit, there's a ton of uncertainty because we are not a direct need for healthcare providers. We're more of an ancillary need. And so we rely on discretionary spend. And because the healthcare industry is experiencing such big hits because they can't do elective surgeries and such, our economic forecast is bleak at this point. Now we do have strong reserves, but with that comes a ton of uncertainty for our employees. And fortunately, we haven't had to take any action yet. And we've been, I think, doing a tremendous job communicating to our employees, which is a common theme that I've heard. But still, we fight that common struggle of, but they still ask the questions we wouldn't expect them to ask, as someone had just said. So we have found that we just keep communicating in different ways, and we're going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until we become, the most effective that we can.
Thank you, first of all, for being so eloquent in sharing that. It was a really clear picture and path. So let me ask the group this, and then Teresa, I'm going to come back to you. I'm sure we've all had leaks in our home before. Something was leaking, something was cracked, right? And we try to fix it. But we never really get to the root of the problem, hence we can put some sealant on it. We can do a lot of different things, but it never fully kind of fixes it if we didn't get to the root. Do you feel, Teresa, that what you're communicating is resonating, but not all the way to the core for people, that helps build further kind of strength for them to progress forward? Do you think it satisfies in the moment, but then later on they're like, nah, I still don't feel right yet? Is that a fair kind of assessment as to maybe what, not that you're doing anything wrong, they're just still not realizing what they fully need yet to kind of connect those dots, at least in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in any state of uncertainty, such as what we're all going through right now, even if you're clear in the moment, folks are going to walk away and question it again, and then they're going to start to make stories up in their head about what could be happening. So yes, to answer your question directly, yes.
Yeah, and those stories are the perceptions. After those are in our head a long enough time, that noise and sound becomes the norm, and our behaviors shift to try to circumvent around them, right? That's the human mind. That's the way a team to team, region to region works. We're trying to shift by which to avoid those perceptions, that uncertainty, what we don't understand. And to her example, which was a great one, when we are communicating with people, it is a powerful thing for you. Doesn't have to be weekly. Certainly would recommend bi-weekly, doing a gut check based on our culture, based on our strategy, and based on our kind of communication and the capability we've been putting out to you, not only keep you connected, but keep you empowered. For you right now, where do you feel right now? You could just, and this is a powerful way to use this process, do it. What are some of the perceptions that you have right now that are not healthy, and for you really causing you maybe to shift behaviors, and maybe you feel it's eroding results, if at all? Where are those, based on those perceptions, what uncertainty is driving that for you? What don't you fully understand that if you did, within what we can control, that would make a big difference? With what we can't control, what is that? Because sometimes, even when we don't have the answers, it's just about validating and giving people that voice that in this way then allows us to say, right to your point, Teresa, great. Let's talk about in this meeting where we do have true clarity and where we are really certain. What are the possibilities that we're working on? What are some of the things that we are improving or activating that's getting us stronger to generate results? So one of the last pieces I'll mention with this before we move to our last couple pieces, this can, like I said, be done quarterly, monthly, weekly, even daily, quickly, right? It's very much a gut check, but it's also building forward. Second, This is a way to really inventory and evaluate the communication that's been going out, meetings, memos, town halls, but giving people the permission to be kind of open and honest with maybe what they are afraid to share, or they don't even know because all they know, to Teresa's point, a lot of perceptions, based off a lot of fear. We're trying to get through. We're trying to keep ourselves moving, but giving people that ability to really look at where are things breaking down, what don't you get, what can we build forward with. Think of this like a balance sheet. The right side, although typically on a balance sheet you see it the opposite way, the right side is the assets. What can we build off of? The breakdown's the liability. What's really dragging us down, right? And using this as a way to give people confidence and a voice to look at what can we build off of? What do we need to really be resolving? So again, as part of the follow-up, you will not only get this slide, but you will get some very simple steps, how to use it for yourself, with your team, but also as a way to diagnose, but also a way to really build forward. So thank you all for doing that. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time on aligned accountability and purposeful execution. The reason being is if we don't have true clarity, it's so difficult to have aligned accountability and purposeful execution. I want to cover a couple points that build off this tool, these 5 levels of breakdown, and how do we really drive 5 levels of breakthrough forward. So I'm going to give you an example and then just some tips to support as what I've already done, how to leverage this. So Peggy Johnson, who's the EVP of Business Development at Microsoft, was one of Satya Nadella's first hires when he came aboard, when he took over Steve Ballmer. In this very short, about 1.5 minute video clip, she's being interviewed on Fortune's Brainstorm Reinvent Summit. All high-level executives are there, and she's asked a powerful question about the transformation Microsoft went through. And the answer she provides very much simplifies what we talk about when we talk about how do we drive aligned accountability against the true clarity of what we're trying to not just communicate about, but connect. So enjoy, and then we'll provide some couple insights before we get to the next step and get some other action going.
Peggy, this has been great, but I love this idea of going from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. Now, you sort of described it, you said it was a spark, and once it happened, it spread like wildfire. And somehow I suspect it wasn't quite that easy. And I think you got a lot of people in this room who, they all come from great companies. They wouldn't be here if they didn't come from great companies. They're all facing a transition like the one you talked about. Can you talk a little more tactically about how you make that transition? Because it was a deep, deep culture at Microsoft.
It was, and you know, we have a lot of people, 130 some odd thousand people, and to get that message all the way down through all the ranks, I mean, that's challenging to do for sure. One thing that Satya talks about is consistency. So from the moment, you know, he was interviewing me until today, he's had the same message. And so the reinforcement of our mission statement to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, people can repeat that from the top to the bottom. And our ambitions, it's just something that he starts every one of our internal all hands meetings, like our executive all hands, with that mission statement, with our ambitions. And he goes back to them and he ladders everything up to that. And that's helpful. And that's something he has advised companies who are undertaking their own transformations to be consistent in your messaging. Keep coming back to it, keep revisiting it. It's something that, you know, you don't want to do a box check and put a sticker on the back of your name tag and that's my mission statement, I never look at it again.
How many of you do huddles, scrums, et cetera, whether it's on projects, whether it's on a consistent basis? How many of you do that, right? One of the key pieces with this is how do we really think about whether it's for yourself, within a department or organization, monthly and weekly, how do we go about leveraging a more powerful way to ensure we have true clarity, but we're driving that aligned accountability? Just want to give this to you. Again, this will come for you as a follow-up. You heard this from Peggy, something we believe in and drive in all the work that we do. Every meeting, I don't care if it's 5 minutes with somebody, this is something that when dealing with change is the #1 thing. Alan Mulally, those of you familiar, former CEO of Ford, as well as Boeing. Ford during the financial crisis, Boeing during 9/11. Just talked about this on a recent webinar he did, which was amazing. consistently connecting to the core identity and strategy of the company in a way that's really simple and clean. Who we are, where we are. It's not just about numbers and spreadsheets. How many of you have spreadsheets that are 45 tabs long, font size 3, and you just can't get, like, it's just so much, right? You just wish we could just get rid of spreadsheets. Teresa, you're smiling because you know it's true. I see you're smiling. Got you. Right? It's real simple. Let's boil this down. The real impact we are having and the metrics that matter. Like, that should simplify what we want to share about where we are quantitatively, qualitatively. We don't have to cover all of these, right? In our marketplace, with our customers, within our organization, for our people. We'll tell you in a lot of the global town halls and change we've led for companies to help drive not just the messaging, but more importantly, the actual progression for the organization. You can touch upon these 4 things in an hour because we're telling a story. Where we are, who we serve, what we're doing, and how we make sure we support our people. Really powerful. Next, what we must focus on. RMI, really most important. What are the top 4 really most important goals that we must accomplish? They should be consistent. For one of our clients, it's the same as the beginning of the year. Employee experience, customer experience, succession planning, and sustainability. Those haven't changed. It's just the narrative on top that's evolved. What is the consistent focus that no matter what happens, we are still doing? The deliverables may shift, but not the intentions. That's really key. It could be within each cornerstone. It could be just your overall top 4 or 5 goals if you have them. How many of you have organizations that have like the most critical goals and there's like 17 of them or 10 of them or 11 of them? There's never, ever should be. We've seen this across all the different companies we serve. You can boil any strategic priorities down to no more than 5 things. Can easily be 3 to 5. What do these connect into? Who we are, where we are, what we must focus on, and then what we need. This goes right back to what we've just done. Breakdowns. This is what we clear out on a weekly, monthly basis. What are some of the breakdowns we have? Why are those happening? What's the action recommendation? We're using those tools to help filter in a conversation. You're really feeling frustrated right now. Great. What perceptions is that causing for you? Has that shifted your approach at work? Do you feel it's impacting anything yet? It hasn't yet. Great. Talk to me about, because you feel stressed and overwhelmed, what don't you understand right now that we can control, and what we can't control that if you did understand would make a huge difference in your confidence right now. Great. Let's see what we can do to work through that. That even if I don't have the answers, you know, I've got your back. Do you think that would make a difference for people if we did that? Yeah. Breakthroughs. What really is something that you feel we can build on based on the week and or the month? Excellent. Why do you feel that's something we can build on? What action can we take? What recommendations do we have? Giving people a voice to share these things can be quick. Can be 1 or 2 people in that week. It's a larger meeting. We can get each person to share, but then really critically, it's then saying this. Great. Based on where we are or who we are, where we are, what we most focused on, and what we need, what must we do over the next week or month to reduce our breakdowns and increase our breakthroughs? Have everybody share that. And then great, what does that look like for each of us over the course of the next week or month? This can be done inside of 60 minutes. Again, you can do this. This is about aligned accountability. You can do this with a person in 5 minutes. You can just go through the 4 pieces. Let's reconnect to who we are. Where are you at right now? What do you think? Let's talk about what you and I need to focus on for our department of the company. Great. What do we need to make sure we reduce our breakdowns and drive our breakthroughs? You can do that in 5 minutes. Does that make sense? It's a framework to calm the noise and really own the narrative of what's going on. I will share with you here. This is something very simple that you can do in terms of a daily huddle. So when you only have 5 minutes, same exact thing. Let's talk about really, again, focus-wise, what we really need to do right now, and then quickly go through. From yesterday, what didn't go well, why, what's the action recommendation? Breakthrough, what did go well, why, what's the action recommendation? What do we need to do to reduce our breakdowns and increase our breakthroughs today? Again, very simple and powerful that beyond more information, more emails, more communication, more updates, we're taking ownership. We're not just being engaged. So what I want you to do right now, before we wrap up with one final piece that kind of threads this idea of purposeful execution. How do we think about that in a way that can really help us move forward? I want you to, wherever you're typing or writing, what is one insight you just took away as we're talking about how we create aligned accountability. And again, you're going to get all this. What's one thing you're taking away about how you meet, collaborate with your team or teams, that what we just went through, man, that would make a huge difference if we started to do that. One insight, one action by yourself. We'll get one volunteer. It's about 30 seconds. What did you take away? What will you do to drive aligned accountability for your team or organization or yourself to build greater confidence? Take 30 seconds, one insight, one action. Do that now. Write it.
You can share that in the chat box as well.
Thank you. I forgot about that. Thanks, Joe. What will you take away? What will you do? Share if you are wanting to create value for your group here. Share that in the chat box now. Take another 20 seconds. Right. Joe, what do we have? Let's pick one or two, and we'll just kind of share that, and we'll move on to our last piece.
Not surprised, this is how all meetings and all events work. We got Maria back on the horn to improve the communication orientation, to be clear and making sure we are all on the same page is her insight. We got Chris in here saying, focus on clean and timely communication with my group. Knowledge is power with an exclamation point. Bill S is, I like the simple question, what can't we control versus what can we control, particularly in this environment, COVID-19. We got Tamara saying, oh, the messages are moving, they're coming in so fast. Reinforce the same message across and throughout the organization. Teresa, consistent messaging is key. All leaders need to send the same messaging all the time. Sharon, identify where unclear, share what we know now, approach to revisit questions both daily and weekly.
Awesome. I will share this with you as we go to the very kind of last section here, which is going to be kind of a closing story before we just take a couple of moments for some Q&A and set you up with how we're going to get some follow-up. Think about this. Do you and your organization more provide communication or empower others to communicate with you? Because what I see from your chat, don't go into perceptions, because you just learned, don't do that, right? Season, right? Is what we need to do. We need to reinforce. We need to communicate. We've got to, yes, but also a hard no. What do we need to understand? How do we empower people to share their voice? How do we create, again, true clarity by not just what we say, but what we need to be able to hear? How many of you understand what I'm saying? Right? What we provide is critical, but more importantly is what we are understanding. So again, if you were to put a thermometer in your organization, are we providing or are we understanding? They should be balanced. If not, you're not doing anything wrong. We just can do some things more right. So it's a conduit, because no matter what we say, we've been a part of this with M&A, pre and post. Hey, we've communicated all these changes. We don't understand why they're not getting it, because they're not owning it. They're sitting up in the stands, they're not on the field. If you're with me, kind of nod your head. Yes. Excellent. All right. As we wrap up here, I'm going to share one final story with you. So, change or die. No, I'm not getting morbid on you. This is actually the title of a leadership book by a heart surgeon by the name of Dr. Alan Deutschman. Came out back, a good 15 years ago, plus, probably a little bit more than that. In the book, real simple. He has a practice. In that practice, they do serious heart surgery. And one day he said, you know what? I typically serve about 50 people a year. I want to know, how did we actually do, not post-surgery, because we know that, not during post-op, because we know that, but 2-3 years later. They only visit us when there's a problem, because now they're with their general practitioner. Outside of the situational times when we have to check in with people, did they make the changes they needed to do for their life beyond what we had to do for them? Because if they didn't change, they would die. So he got all these pictures up on a wall, and he asked his people to look at the pictures. Do you remember this patient from a couple years ago? Yes, great. I want you to put a check mark against who you think, based on knowing them and what they did, that they could make those changes needed. A lot of people said, when they tallied up the numbers, 60%, 70%, 50%. So he said, great, let's figure it out. So they made phone calls. 10% of the people were living. Only 5. 45 died. Because again, just because you get surgery, just because you get a financial injection, just because, hey, I didn't get fired, doesn't mean, just because, again, we did something, doesn't mean it's sustainable, right? It's about us and owning it. So he was like mortified by this. He says, we're changing all this. He said, all right, going forward, here's what we're going to do. First, they're going to sign a contract. Beyond surgery and our normal post-op and the rehab, they're going to sign an additional contract that commits them to 12 months, once a month, coming to our office, where they, number one, are going to have to share what went well, what didn't go well in the past month for your goals and your reality of how you are driving your health. Second, plan. What is the focus that you need to have over the next month when it comes to your health overall, which means your fitness, your nutrition, your sleep? What do you need to do? What do you feel you need to do? Third, where do you most need to improve in your mindset and in your approach to be successful? Lastly, empowerment. What do you need to do to feel like you've got this and reduce where you don't have this? What do you need? They had to talk. They had to share. They weren't putting them on a treadmill. They weren't hooking them up to meters. They weren't trying to say, all right, let's go through some nutrition counseling. All right, let's get you with our fitness trainer. They had to own it first. 3 years later, it wasn't 10% of those 50 people that were living, 77% still living. 3 years later, the first group they evaluated was only 2 years and it was only 10. Why? Because it was about purposeful execution, which starts with ownership. Am I owning not just what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it, purposeful, and where and how I am or am not being successful? So as you think about that and your overall reality, I will ask you this as we wrap up. First, show of hands for how many of you was this worth your time today? How many of you were bored out of your mind? You're like, this was the most boring webinar, which I'd be shocked. Most boring webinar possible. Going to sleep. You have a still picture of you. It's not you. You put like a copy picture up there. It's not really you because you're bored out of your mind. No? How many of you are planning on taking real action as a result versus, hey, I took a lot of notes and then you won't do anything? Awesome. Appreciate that. So before I share with you in the next 2 minutes how we're going to make sure to get this follow-up to you tomorrow. First, we do have a little bit of time. And again, you saw this is very engaging, so I wanted a little bit more time for questions. We got a lot of great interaction, which we want to capitalize on. Please put your questions in the chat box. We will do our best, certainly, to make sure that if we don't answer, which we won't, all of them, we will make sure, obviously, to answer them post this. Because I believe, Joe, can we see? We can, yes. We will be able to answer them because with the recording, we can also see the chat. So take 10 seconds. If you got a quick question, put it up there. Answer one question, and then we will make sure to kind of provide some next step support, and then make sure that close out the meeting. So just hang tight for 10 seconds. Who's got a question?
We'll give them a moment to fill it out. By the way, if you don't have a question, don't write anything.
Yes, correct. Unless you want to be snarky and have a little moxie and just be funny, which we also welcome. All right, Joe, I give you the sorcerer's hat, if you will, to pick out of that hat. Who are we going to answer?
So we don't have any questions in the chat box yet. There we go. We got one from Teresa. See, you just got to give people some time. Love it. Any tips for balancing getting employees to take ownership without, I guess it's with possible sense of entitlement? Does that mean, so Teresa, take yourself off mute for a moment so we can just understand the question here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so opening yourself up and inviting employees to share and listening is something that my organization does well. But employees in my organization are also very vocal and have a pretty strong sense of entitlement and want a lot. And so it's a tough balance to continuously ask for their input and not be able to give them everything they want.
Got it. It's a really, really good point, right? So I think sometimes one of the ways to solve a problem, while we always want to get to the root, sometimes we have to go around it, right? If you have a pain in your neck or your shoulder, that's not usually what the problem is when you talk about human anatomy. Usually that roots to something maybe in your hip, right? Your knees. So sometimes we have to get to the root that isn't observable. So what I would suggest to you is really think about shifting your meetings to value you can provide, insights or questions you have for us that we will then answer and then provide value back to you, so it's more of a conduit. So kicking off your meetings, whatever those may be, where it's about them providing, great, over the past week, going back to the breakthroughs and breakdowns, what is value you really created or impact you've really had, whether it's just with your team, yourself, or the company that you're really most proud of, and get some submissions. Like what we're doing here, call on 2 of those 3. What did you do? Why is that critical? How will you build off that? What do you recommend others do? You'll see that in that aligned accountability session. Great. What do you need from the organization that you feel we can provide? And be honest, what do you need from us that you're not sure if we can provide because of the reality around us? So taking that shift, Teresa, where the meetings kind of start off with what they've done, and then really be able to filter that back to what they need from you, that what we can, what we can't, so we're being honest, right? And let them still go. But then great, we're providing our message, our strategy, what we need from them, and it becomes more of a conduit. Starting with them and then us is more critical than always starting with us, and then they're waiting and waiting and waiting knowing them. Is that helpful? I like thumbs up, that works. So how can we help? So we're not gonna have time to do this necessarily here, but what I will ask you to do right now, take your mobile phone out so we get you set up.
Or you could do this on your computer.
Oh, that's true. I forget that we are.
Since you're on your computer.
It's true. Right on your computer, you're going to type this website, www.tinyurl.com/TSG partner. So do that now. You can all tab out for just a brief second. I'll let you complete this, but definitely complete this over the next few minutes or 1 minute post this is done, because this is how we're going to get everything to you immediately. And what this is really about.
Can you repeat that? Because I didn't catch it all.
It's right on the slide. Do you see where it says we can help?
Well, they're tabbed out.
Oh, they tabbed out. Sorry. So it's tiny URL. So just all tab back. tinyurl.com/T as in Tom, S as in Sam, G as in go, partner. So tinyurl.com/TSG partner. So Total Solutions Group.
Or T as in total, S as in solutions, G as in group, Jack.
I guess we could do that too.
One of the questions that Sharon asked, that this is going to be the start of that answer. So Sharon said, how can we hold ourselves accountable to change behavior after this webinar? The point is we don't do one and dones. So by filling this evaluation, we are going to follow up with you several times, not in an annoying way, but in a value added way. First, here's the slides, here's some audio, here's continued ways to take ownership of this
and the video recording.
and stay accountable.
That's why,
a couple examples of how we use it.
And that's why we're always back at SHRM Annual and a lot of the SHRM State conferences, because it's not about us. It's about the follow-up that we send. So from this, slide in PowerPoint 24 hours. 1 week later per each of those days by no later than Thursday morning, so it's consistent. We're going to focus on the true clarity piece and give you some value. And then you're going to go do some action. We're going to follow up the next week. You want to respond back to us and what you're doing. That's how you drive accountability. If you don't, and you're just getting the value, that's great. But we really believe whether we can be of value to you in terms of the virtual way that we're supporting a lot of companies, great. And you'll see as you go through this very quick evaluation and how we can get the stuff to you. If you want to have a conversation to see how it can be of support to you, we're dealing with the most distressed environments right now imaginable, and you're probably a part of those industries. But if you don't have any need or support, you don't need to check that box. This is all about getting you the value, but over the next 2 to 3 weeks, consistent bite-sized pieces to help drive this forward. And that's what makes what we do different, because it's not about the session, it's about the impact. What are you going to do with it? So as you have this and are completing this, let me turn this back over to our illustrious, phenomenal team. They've been phenomenal with us, and their energy is awesome to close this out.
As I run to my mute button. So thank you so much to Jack and Joe for your leadership, your direction, and your facilitation today. For all of our chapter members, as a reminder, we will make sure that you've got the slides and video through Jack and Joe's recording, as well as the recertification credits from SHRM and HRCI. You'll be getting an email from Lori with our standard post event survey, and after you complete that, the certification information will follow. As I mentioned, our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, June 16th. We are anticipating that will be virtual still, and we'll be discussing back to work planning and navigating the new normal. Thank you so much for your time, attention, and high engagement level during this session. I appreciate all of you making time for this in your day, and hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you.
You guys were great. We really appreciate your time, your energy, your candidness. And we look forward to supporting you with the follow-up. And if there's any other questions, we'll be able to everybody to support you. But otherwise, have a great day and a great evening.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Oh, Teresa, thank you for your involvement.
All right, everybody wave goodbye.
Or we just awkwardly stare and say nothing for 30 seconds.
Right. Don't be the last one to leave the room.
I love it. It was Chris. That was good. I like it.